Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us today for our Breakthrough Thinkers webinar. My name is Emily Marsh. I'm the marketing manager here at T3. Just want to run through a little bit of housekeeping before we get going. So thank you ever so much to those people that have already submitted questions when they signed up for the webinar. We're going to do our best to address as many of those as possible after Matt's presentation. And for anybody else who does think of any questions they'd like to ask as we're going through, please do just pop those in the chat box, and again we'll capture those and come back to them at the end of the session. So we're recording today's webinar and we'll be sharing all the slides with you as well. Please do hang around for that Q&A session at the end of today's webinar. We do have a follow-up event to tell you about and a joining workshop, but we'll send over the details of that by email so that we can really try and maximise our time today and get through as many of those questions as we can. So without any further ado, I'm very pleased to introduce our presenter for today, Matt Follows. So Matt spent 20 years as an award-winning writer and creative director and has combined this with extensive training in psychology and psychotherapy. So welcome, Matt, and thank you very much, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Emily. So Emily, just can you see my screen?
Yeah, absolutely great, yeah.
Excellent. So hello everyone, whoever's there. It's interesting not to be able to see you, but I'm sure you're there. So thank you for coming along today, and I hope we're going to give you something that will be pretty useful to you. As Emily said, is that this isn't going to be one of those webinars that I'm sure you've been on, and I've been on a few of them, where you get about 10 minutes of content and about 45 minutes of hard sell. It's not about that. It's about giving you some good, cool content that we can use in this period of time that we're going through at the moment. And more importantly, the kind of content we can use moving forwards after this period of uncertainty, brackets, ... whatever what you want to put this period into. So we're going to talk today about breakthrough thinking and about the Breakthrough Thinkers Toolkit in relation to the pandemic situation we find ourselves in. In some ways, it's a bit of an unusual situation. In some ways, it's uncertain, of course. Then again, anyone would say that isn't that case. But the act of being a breakthrough thinker, the need for being a breakthrough thinker, and the ability to be one has never actually changed. The stuff that we used to do and have done before this thing happened are as relevant today, if not more so relevant. So, as Emily said, is that we're going to do probably about an hour, just under an hour of giving you the content. And what I would encourage you to do is to write down any questions that you might have. If there's anything that sticks out in mind that you're confused about, interested about, excited about, want to know more about, etc., then do write those down, pop them into the chat bar so that we can have them, and I'll do my best to answer those at the end of the session. So it's as best as we can. It's a two-way street. It's not just me banging on down the old camera hole and you just listening in with your old ear holes and stuff. So it's making sure this technology works. Breakthrough Thinkers Toolkit for the post-pandemic rebuild. Rebuild's an important and interesting word as well, because I don't actually think is as much about rebuilding as re-envisioning, reimagining and repurposing and rechanging the things that we used to do. I think what's happened, just as a quick aside, I was just looking at the news just before I came on, and the fact that what's tended to happen with this pandemic that happened is that people have resorted back to the status quo. They've kind of like gone back to, through fear, they're trying to work out, well, what's the normal way of doing things? And they want to hold on to that normal stuff. What we're going to be finding, and as we're already finding moving out of this, I'm in Spain, so we're a week or so ahead of some countries, is that people don't want normal. People don't want a rebuild. They want people to imagine and reimagine what the future can be and give that now. I'm going to be talking about that and how you can't actually get away with just meeting your customers, your clients and your colleagues' expectations after this. You need to exceed them and excel on them. We've got history that will show us why we need to do that, and I'll go into that in a little bit. So the main thing we need to know is that if we ever needed an excuse to shake some shit up, apologize for swear word, I will swear a little bit, but it'll be very, very infrequently. But if we ever needed an excuse to shake stuff up, this little virus thing is it. And there's two ways of looking at it. One, we can be incredibly fearful of the thing and kind of worry about all the damage it's done. Or two, we can look at it as an opportunity. I know that's certainly the way I went into this lockdown. We went into that lockdown. I didn't look at this and go, why is this happening to me? I looked at this and went, why is this happening for me? Where is the opportunity here? Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, it's difficult. Yeah, it's hard. But there is an opportunity in everything. And I think it was Richard Branson who once said, within every great challenge is the opportunity. Your job is to find it. And I think that now, with businesses as they are and the way we're moving forward, our job is to find those big meaty opportunities within the rubble that some of us will be left with. So without further ado, let me just tap into a little bit about why would you even bother listening to some dude in Spain on a webcam with slightly receding hair, perfect lockdown hair, I would argue. Why would you listen to me? What can I give you that you wouldn't get elsewhere? Well, first up, there are a lot of people out there, obviously all over the world, who they talk a really great innovation and creativity game. They talk about them being gurus and experts and all of that kind of like creative ninjas, etc., etc. When you dig below the surface of a lot of these people and a lot of this kind of information they're given, it's essentially rehashed stuff they've got from the latest self-help book or the latest creative thinking manual. It doesn't work. I've spent enough years, 2.5 decades in this industry, figuring out what does work and what doesn't work. So you're going to get the real deal. So I started off 25 years ago back in a little startup, a little tin pot startup in Golden Square, London, called M&C Saatchi. I think there were about 20 people there at the time, as Morris and Charles Saatchi were there, obviously. They were a bit pissed off about being booted out of Saatchi and Saatchi, but they had a big vision, a big dream, and they were going to essentially stiff it to Saatchi's. So they hired a bunch of mavericks, a bunch of free thinkers, a bunch of radicals to try and shake stuff up back in 1995, I think it was. Brilliant time to be there, exciting time to be there, and we did some great stuff as a business, as an agency, and the agency grew over the next 4 years from being a little tin pot startup that was brick, dust and tarpaulin to becoming one of the fastest growing agencies on the planet, and certainly one of the richest and wealthiest. And they did that because they challenged the status quo. They did that because they weren't afraid to rock their boat. They did that because they faced fear. As I said in the videos, if you've seen one, they faced it straight down the barrel of fear and just ran, they gained it. Come on, let's change some stuff. That happens all the time. And then after 4 years, we'd won some awards like Cannes Golds and stuff. And myself and my art director partner got headhunted to another tin pot agency that no one had ever heard of, called Wyden & Kennedy in London. It was an American company. The British press hated it. The agency scene hated it because it was Americans coming into London turf. And back in those days, as everybody knew, London was where everything was. They didn't want an American company coming in anyway. That place went from being a bit very, very scrappy underdog, kind of a cross between a hacienda and what would it be called? A hacienda and a crazy farm, essentially. And it became one of the most awarded, and still is the most awarded, heavily awarded, and best places in the world to work at as in advertising. And it's a wonderful place to work. And again, a lot of the stuff I learned there was the stuff that I teach with the breakthrough thinking. It's the stuff I do when I coach. So I coach creative leaders all over the world now via Zoom and Skype and stuff. So I've been doing this for a decade, so this isn't new. So I've been doing that. And then when I left Wyden & Kennedy, we won some awards there for Nike. Then I became a commercials director. I did that for a few years. And then I went to King's College London, basically jacked in the creative side. And when I started studying psychotherapy, I studied clinical hypnotherapy. I studied a neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, to trainer level, CBT, etc., etc. So for the past decade, I've studied a lot of stuff, which I won't go into. So the stuff you're going to get today, essentially, it's a long-winded way of saying it's the real deal. This is the stuff that the pros use. This is the stuff that has kept me within my job for all of these years at some of the best places from an advertising perspective you can be at. And my clients that I work with now and have done for many years now are incredibly talented in what they've done. They are the sharpest creative brains out there. And some of the stuff that I'm going to teach you as well is obviously I've been bouncing this stuff off with those guys, trying to work out, well, where is the magic? Where is the difference that makes the difference? What is the difference that makes the difference from a creative point of view and an innovation point of view? And I'm going to go through a lot of that today with you guys. Normally, I would kind of go now, so any questions from the floor, but obviously we're doing this in a bit of a more of a one-way street. So I want to carry on and go to the next slide. So I've already said that Corona is the biggest opportunity out there if you choose to take it. It's certainly one of the biggest shake-up calls I think we've had within business for certainly my living history, and I suspect most people's, unless you're over 100. But there's a truth here, and the truth is this: that these companies, most companies, are talking about the need to be creative and innovative moving out of this phase. They're talking about the post-pandemic new normal and how we need to change, we need to be different, we need to be more creative in the way we approach problems, we need to be more creative in the way we work with our colleagues, we need to be more creative in the way that we work with our clients. We ourselves need to be bolder, we need to be braver, and our clients need to be bolder and braver. We need to build a stronger sense of trust so that we can go out on a limb, so that we can really shatter icons, so that we can really wobble the status quo, and that we can go from being incremental improvers, which would have maybe got us just about away with that like before Corona. There's all this big game being spoken about, but the truth of the matter is this: most people who are asking this and are saying this will fail to innovate. Pretty bold thing to say, but I can pretty much guarantee that a lot of companies that are going to be out there saying we want to be innovative, we want to be creative, will fail to do so. It's not your fault, it's not the business's fault, it's biology's wiring that's made it so. So I want to go into that, because a lot of the stuff you're going to get about with creativity is the kind of tools you can use, is the kind of frameworks you can use, it's a methodology. But unless you've got your noggin sorted, unless you've got a very anti-fragile, strong mindset, unless you know specifically why you are doing what you are doing, you will fail. Not just in innovation, in most things. Different story. But so the question is, why will most companies fail to innovate? Why will, in this period of time when there's never been a greater opportunity to do so, when we've probably been given no greater amount of string to walk on to innovate, why will we fail? The answer is this: uncertainty. It's one of those words that's about as boringly overspoken these days in the past 2 months. Probably only been outdone by the word pivot, which I used to love the word pivot, by the way. I fucking hate the word pivot now, because it's been one of those words, it's one of those bingo, it's definitely going to go on the buzzword bingo card about blue sky thinking. I know we can stick pivot on there, and we can probably stick uncertainty on there, pretty sure we will. But here's the thing, the reality is this: from a biological perspective, a neuroscientific perspective, uncertainty is the thing that will make most companies fail. I will guarantee it. And the reason is this: your brain hates uncertainty. It hates uncertainty more than certain doom. Your brain, because of it's hardwired to survive. Yeah, you got this survival instinct. It's kind of like we've got a prehistoric brain stuck in this skull here. Yeah, it hates uncertainty because uncertainty can lead to pain. Uncertainty can lead to death. Uncertainty can lead to a lot of stuff that we don't want, stress, etc., etc. So it hates uncertainty more than certain doom. Now we have a problem here, because when we face uncertainty, consciously or unconsciously, we trigger a little thing in the brain called the fear response. Some people call it the threat response. Some people call it the fight, flight, freeze response. I like to call it the fear response. It's call a spade a spade. And basically fear, the fear response stands for fuck everything and run. That picture there of that dude with the flag is probably your financial director right there. Probably fucking everything and legging it right now. We don't want uncertainty. My God, we've been bashed with so much uncertainty. The last thing we want is more uncertainty. Therein lies the problem. Therein lies the mindset shift that needs to happen if you're going to make this work. Because creativity, by its very nature, is humongously uncertain. This isn't me saying it. This isn't my client saying it. This is Albert Einstein for a start. And he did a wonderful thing with a laughing horse. He didn't have a laughing horse. But Einstein said, if at first an idea is not absurd, there is no hope for it. And I would ponder this and push this question out to you guys sitting there now. How comfortable are you as a business? How comfortable are you as a leader, as a manager? How comfortable are you as an employee to push absurdity forwards? How brave are you to kind of go, I know this is a really fucking mental thought, but what if ... And how brave are you as a manager and a leader if someone comes to you with that to go, that could be quite interesting. I wonder what we could do with that. Can you see the conflict here? We don't want uncertainty, but we have to be uncertain. Lee Clow, one of the greatest in my mind anyway, one of the smartest advertising people in the world, who was responsible for the 1984 Apple commercial and the crazy ones. People who would change the world are the ones who are crazy enough to think they can. He said that if an idea isn't scary, it's not an idea at all. So again, here's a problem, because our brains hate uncertainty. Our brains will unconsciously trip ourselves into fight and flight, into the fear response. We will start seeing the danger around us with things that aren't certain, with things that are scary, because scarcity, not even a word, but scary triggers fight, flight. Scary triggers another S word within our brain called stress. It's another thing I don't think we want much of. So I would encourage you, if you're listening to this and watching this right now, well, obviously you are listening to this and watching this right now, otherwise you wouldn't be listening to these words and hearing me speak and we watching me say those things. You've got to get really comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that's the uncomfortable truth. The good thing is, and it is a wonderful thing, is that when you know how to properly do this stuff, you go from being a daredevil to a stunt person. And there's a very, very big difference between being a daredevil and a stunt person. A daredevil will ride a motorbike into a flaming ball of flames without thinking twice. A stunt person would never do that. They have backup plans, they have systems, they have formulas, they have a mindset that keeps them safe. So you need to learn as a business, how can we put this the nets underneath the flaming ball of madness? How can we reduce risk but still take a huge risk? So on the surface, creativity, especially brilliant creativity, looks very scary, it looks very dangerous, and it looks very brave. But anyone who's been in this business for long enough knows that we have a lot of ropes beneath us, hanging us to the mountain. So you need to learn that kind of stuff. And one of the things you need to do, if you're going to build a culture of creativity, innovation, then I believe that your job is to create a safe space for dangerous ideas. You are going to be asking people to be dangerous. You are going to be asking people to be comfortable being uncomfortable, whether it's people above you, people below you, or people to the side of you. You're going to be saying that we want you to go out on a limb. You're going to be saying that I know these things have worked for 10 years, 20 years, a century, but we need to start changing them. And that's a dangerous place to be. We talk a lot in certainly in the mental health side of business about psychological safety. Well, within creativity, there is no more need for psychological safety than anywhere else. If I don't feel psychologically safe to jump off a cliff and break the status quo and go the different direction to everyone else, I ain't going to do it. So you need to know as a business, how can we create a safe space for dangerous ideas? The good news is I'm going to teach you how to do that today, but I'm also going to tell you this, is that the stuff I'm going to teach you is what you need to start telling the people around you and educating the people around you in what creativity, innovation, and breakthrough thinking really is, because it's not a risky game. And I can tell you this from being in advertising for so many years of dealing, I dread to think how many multi-millions of dollars of clients' money I've been had the blessing to play with. But I can guarantee you that at no point was that a gamble. It was very, very, very much as we possibly can, not a gamble. It's a very strategic thing we were playing with. There's a thing in advertising called strategic creatives. I think we're all strategic creatives. If we're not, we don't last very long. So if you want to create a safe space for dangerous ideas, there's one thing you need to do. if you do nothing else, you need to do this. You need to tell people, you need to shout it from the rafters. And with every communication you do, you have to say to people that you have the freedom to experiment and you have the permission to fail. Again, go and say that to your FD. Oh, dude, mate, we're going to survive the next thing, because what we're going to do, we're going to give people the freedom to experiment, to play, to have fun. We're going to give permission to fail. You are going to come back with a big kickback of like, you are not going to go there. That's why when we do these trainings for breakthrough thinkers, is that we want to make sure that all people within that organization attend it, because when people who initially have a bit of a fear phobia, and understandably, by the way, of creativity and breaking rules and stuff, when they start realizing how we do it in a very strategic way, they stop worrying so much. In fact, I found personally over experience in working with T3 is that when we've done this with big organizations, the people who first crack open and come up with the most blindingly brilliant idea are the least likely ones. They're the ones who initially would have said, oh, it's not on a spreadsheet, we can't do it. The people who get really excited about this stuff, when you train them, it's a very strategic way that we be creative and we be bold and brave. They start being the ones who lead the way. It's very exciting. So one thing you need to do, stick it on your wall. You have the freedom to experiment, the permission to fail. I used to say pre-corona, if you don't like the word fail, say you have the permission to pivot. If you want to use that word do, I've already said my thoughts on that word. I prefer failure. And sometimes people will say, well, I'm not comfortable failure. No, I don't want to be a failure. But I did a podcast and I was speaking to a very, very well-known person, CEO. And he said a wonderful thing. And I never thought about this before. And he said this, he says, failure is a privilege. Failure is a privilege. Not everyone is privileged with the ability to fail. Most of us, if we fail, get very heavily scolded. We're saying to people, I'm going to give you the greatest privilege on earth, the privilege to fail. So long as you learn from your failures, so long as you take the learnings and move forward, you are not an idiot. If you fail and fail and fail, but keep face planting yourself on the concrete without realizing you need to put some wheels on your skateboard, then you belong in the funny farm. But as they say in NLP, there is no failure, only feedback. As one of my clients once said, it's all just data, Matt. It's all data. When you start looking at it like that, then you can start creating great stuff. So you have the freedom to experiment, play, 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 and you have the permission to not always get it right. If you're not making mistakes, if you're not failing, you're not trying, and you're not going to survive. These guys did not give people permission to experiment and play. They did not give people the permission to fail, therefore they failed. The greatest failure is not taking a risk. Blockbuster were given the opportunity to buy Netflix for a ridiculously small sum of money, and they turned it down because they're very smart people on the board of Blockbuster says people don't want videos delivered like that. People want videos and they want stores, because what they want from their video experience is to bump into their neighbor. What they want from their video experience is to buy an impromptu bag of popcorn on the way out. I don't know about you. We're all sitting here intimately and whatever in these computers and stuff. All I want to do is whack on my computer with my pants on and watch anything in the world I want to watch. I want streaming everything. Blockbuster turned it down. Xerox were, look at Apple, one of the greatest innovators in the world, I would argue. Well, certainly were, probably are still, I don't know, but they were certainly, yeah. Well, we look at the interface, the Apple interface that made them all those billions and billions and billions of pounds, dollars. They didn't come up with it, Xerox did. And the person who came up with that went to the heads of Xerox and said, I found this brilliant thing. This is the future. And in their infinite wisdom, because they were scared, they went, that's not what people want. What they want is faster photocopiers. Get that. So if you want to fail, then be afraid of failure. If you want to succeed, lean into it. Walk through some fear doors. So why is business banging on about the need to be more creative and innovative? Because let's face it, for the past 5 years, everyone's been banging on about the need. We need to be more creative. We need to be more innovative. We need to be more creative. Well, why are people saying that? This was pre-corona, by the way. So back in 2005, this study was probably done in 2014, the World Economic Forum said that the top skills you needed to thrive in 2015, so 15, not 5, were complex problem solving, coordinate with others, people management, critical thinking, negotiation, quality control, yada, yada, yada. Number 10, creativity. 2015, creativity was number 10. If you wanted to thrive, and it wasn't just the CEOs thrive, everybody in a business. If you want to thrive as a business, you need those things. Then it shifted dramatically. And what happened, whoops, dodo, was that if you want to survive the fourth industrial revolution in 2020, by the way, this is before they knew the pandemic was coming, obviously. If they did know there's something going on. But anyway, look at the top 3 skills people need now to thrive in the fourth industrial revolution. Complex problem solving. I think we can agree there's probably been never more bigger problems out there, whether it's homeschooling your children, whether it's how can I encourage my staff to come back to an office when they quite like working in their pants in their bedroom. All these problems you've had, complex problems, critical thinking, number 2. Don't just take a spade to be a spade. You need to critically think about this stuff, and creativity jumped from number 10 to number 3. If you look at those top 3 skills, it's all creativity. If you want to solve complex problems, you can't solve it in a way you've always done it. Otherwise, you could have probably solved it potentially, but it's not got any longevity. It's not going to surprise people. I'll show you in a second why it ain't going to fly, mate. Critical thinking. You can't just take a spade as a spade. You can't say just because it is, it is. There's a great quote, and I can't remember who said it. What creative people ask this question, just because they say it ain't so, don't mean it ain't so. And if it ain't broken, let's break it and make it better. This is the mentality that we need now within businesses. If it ain't broken, break it and make it better. Steve Jobs once said that what made him, he believed made Apple so great was that he always questioned why we're doing things the way we're doing them. He never settled. He never just did it because that's the way we've always done it. Dogs in my cup. There's innovation for you. So we need these things, yeah. And so that's one reason. There's another reason why people are banging on about the need to be creative and innovative, and it's another one of these things. The dude on the right, that's a dodo, by the way. So Forbes in 2017 created a study and put a lot of posts out, and they said this in 2017. In the last 10 years, 3 out of 4 companies in the Fortune 1000 have been replaced. 3/4 of the FTSE 1000 within a decade have all gone. Dead as a dodo, as I like to put it there. We need to innovate, we need to be creative. In the next decade, over 50% of the Fortune 500 will not exist. Dead as a dodo, over 50%. And here's the real shocker. Only 20% of CSOs, chief strategy officers, believe they're highly prepared for disruption. Can you see another problem here? These companies who were going for 100 plus years do not exist. They can't rely on old ways of being, thinking and doing and operating to survive. Folks thriving, they're not going to survive it. This is data, we're seeing it, yeah? So over the next decade, 50% of the Fortune 500 will no longer exist. That was before bog roll became the most precious commodity on the planet. So in 2017, this has happened. 20% of CSOs back then thought they were highly prepared for disruption. Well, I would love to see this study now in 2020, midway through 2020. How many now are really prepared for it? Because I'm betting you no one saw this one coming, unless you watch a lot of Bill Gates, etc., etc. So another reason why we're banging on about being creative and innovative is this. We have less time, money, and talent to throw at a problem these days. And conversely, we have more expectations from our customers, our clients, and our colleagues, more uncertainty than we've ever known, and more competition than we've ever known. I don't know about you. This slide's old, mate, as well. This is the funny thing. This slide is an old slide, and it's become more relevant with the corona thing. Do you have more time, more money, and more budget and more talent to throw at a problem than you used to? I bet you don't. Back in the good old days, back at the days when I started at M&C Saatchi, if we wanted to win a pitch, it was really easy. The basic strategy was this: chuck more time, more money, and more talent at the problem than everybody else. We're more likely to win. You can't do that because we've got less time, we've got less money, and we've got less talent. And the talent that we do have is going into other industries as well. So once upon a time when you could have been a cool industry yourself, like advertising is a very cool industry to be in, now it's very hard to attract the kind of talent because they want to go and work at Facebook, they only want to work at Google, but even more than that, they want to set their own entrepreneurial business up and become the next Google. They want to become the next Amazon. They want to become the next Airbnb. They want to become the next Uber, etc., etc. But we have a problem here because the expectations of our audience have gone through the roof. The uncertainty has clearly gone through the roof, and it's never been easier to get into a market and disrupt it. There was a day when if you wanted to disrupt a market, you have to have a lot of heavy backing behind you. You had a lot of finance, a lot of financiers behind you to put an idea into the marketplace. We don't need that now. We can do it from bedrooms. We can do it from our home offices. Again, Corona is proving a point, is that in these uncertain times, your business has never been under more threat because your customers and your clients' expectations are very, very high. They are bored of the status quo. They did that for 2 months. They're bored of that. And your competition is fiddling away and twiddling away and working on these little things to disrupt your marketplace. You need to be ahead of the game. You need to be innovative and creative. And here's something one of my clients who runs an innovation studio. Nothing disappoints people more greatly than meeting their expectations. If you meet people's expectations, you will fail. Period. If you meet your customers, clients' expectations, you will fail. I won't go into it because I haven't got time to go into it. There's a nice little story on that. But trust me, if you meet expectations, you'll fail. When Monarch went bankrupt, I tweeted the morning they went bankrupt at 4 a.m. I need a new flight. You need to get me on it. I'm on a plane in 3 hours, blah, blah, blah. I got so angry when they didn't reply. They'd gone bust, right? But I, as a customer, was really angry. My expectations sky high that they should reply to me personally right now to get me onto another plane. Head down my eye, but anyway, before Corona happened, by the way, there was a virus that was sweeping the planet far more dangerous. And this virus, unlike Corona, that seems to be taken out, how do I say, I can't be tactful this. It seems to take out the older generation and people who are more compromised, etc., etc. Fucking awful, by the way. But there's a virus that was knocking about way before Corona that took out the giants of the world, the strongest on the planet. This virus took out the likes of Kodak and Polaroid, etc., Toys R Us, Tower Records, Pan Am, you name it, Monarch, etc., Nokia. And this virus was called the FDH syndrome. Not much has been written about this virus, but it was absolutely deadly. This virus, by the way, still swims around outside there. Unfortunately, this virus, you can't protect yourself with rubber gloves and a face mask from it. It's impossible. You can't socially distance from the FDH syndrome. And people don't understand this. And you're thinking, what the hell? I thought this was to talk about creativity and innovation. Now we're talking about biology. We're talking about viruses. Yes, we are. The FDH syndrome took out all these fallen giants. It wiped them out very quickly. Giants that had been around for like 117 years, boom, gone overnight. The FDH syndrome stands for fat, dumb, and happy with previous success. If you, as a business, are fat, dumb, and happy with previous success, I wish you the best of luck. But you wouldn't be on this call right now if you had the syndrome or if you had been in contact with it. Or maybe you have been in contact with it, but you're seeing a new way of being. So let's talk about creativity. Let's talk about innovation. Let's flip this script a little bit. People talk about innovation in businesses and in boardrooms, and innovation companies and advertising agencies are very guilty of it as well. And we tend to talk about it with all this smoke and mirrors, with all these fake cogs and wheels and stuff, so that we don't want you to know what innovation is, because We want to charge you with millions and millions of pounds to innovate for you. So when someone asks what is innovation, and I remember doing a talk once for a very, very massive company, I will never name, and they sat through an entire day about innovation. And I was the last speaker on that day. And the first question I asked of this audience was, so what is innovation? Not one hand went up. And it didn't surprise me. And innovation, I'm going to tell you now and let you into a little secret, it's simple. Innovation is great ideas in action. That's it. When anyone asks you for now, what is innovation? What do you mean by innovation? Great ideas in action. If it doesn't leave the lab, it's not an innovation. This is how creativity and innovation works together, by the way. You can be very creative. You have a great idea and it never needs to see the light of day. It's still got value to yourself. It can be in a loft. You could be an artist painting in the loft. You're creative for sure, but it's not an innovation because it's never left the loft. It needs to be. And if you want to be at an innovation, you can't, as a business, and my God, it seems so obvious, but it's amazing how many people do it. Now we're in it. We're really innovative. We have an innovation lab. Well, what stuff have you made? Fuck all. But we're innovative because we've got an innovation lab. If it's not out there in the street, if it's not out there being played with, if it's not out there being actively broken by your end user, you're not an innovative company. You're not innovators. Do you know what I mean? You've got to create a great idea and you have to action it. That's why one of the greatest mindset things, the strengths that a creative person has, that a breakthrough thinker has, that an innovator has, is tenacity. Yeah, they're courageous. Yeah, they're brave. Yeah, they're bold. Yeah, they're all of these things. But what they are above all of that are tenacious. Look at children. That's why they're so bloody creative. They're so fucking tenacious. Doing bang, bang, bang. But why? 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 Yeah, that one works. Let's go with that. That's really interesting. Tenacity rules the day. It's one of the things you want to know about. Don't think it's going to be an easy ride. I'll talk about it in a minute. So creativity, we often think, yeah, so Matt, you're saying we need to be more creative and we need to be creative in order to get stuff out in the world. Because if we're not creative and we're just putting rubbish out into the world, so it's got to be creative. I'm not creative. Most of my people aren't creative. Creativity, we're all creative, by the way. And I would ask you, if we're in a live environment, who here considers himself to be a natural born creative? So just take a note to yourself. Are you a natural born creative? Yes or no? Write a Y or an N in your little book or type it into the chat bar and let us know, because I'm going to prove you wrong if you say you're not. So creativity is not the ability to paint and draw really well. Creativity is not the ability to write lovely words and prose. It's a myth. It's how schools help to segregate and help us get through our curriculums. We have this belief, this myth in psychology and in schools that creative people are right-brainers and logical people are left-brainers. It really winds me up when people say that. I was told that, and it's, but I've studied neuroscience as well at King's. It really winds me up. No neuroscientist on the face of planet Earth in the history of man and womankind has ever said that. If your brain only used one side of your hemisphere of your brain dominant, the other part would wilt and shrivel up, right? It's not to do with left and right brains. If you were told at school you're a left brainer, you're not creative, or you can't write wonderfully, you're not creative, or you're not really good at painting and drawing, you're not creative, I want to encourage you now to just know that that is complete and utter codswallop. We are all born creative. I'm going to prove this. So creativity, professional grade creativity that we need to do post-COVID is not the ability to paint well, to draw well, and to make nice words on pieces of parchment. Creative thinking is this: problem solving. So I've spent all of my professional career in the creative industries. I've spent the past decade specifically coaching some of the most amazing, sharpest, smartest, awarded, famous creative brains in the world. And when I ask them, what did you do? They don't come back to me and say, I'm a music producer, I'm a film director, I'm a chief creative officer, I'm an XYZ, I'm an architect. They go, I solve problems, I'm a problem solver. If I haven't got a problem to solve, I get depressed. when you cut it all down, when you take away all the smoke screen and go, what do you do as a creative person? I solve problems. So my question to you, if anyone out there is thinking I'm not creatively minded or I'm a left brainer, then I want to ask yourself this, and ask yourself this now. Have you ever solved the problem? If you solve the problem, you're halfway there. Because that's what creative thinking is. It's problem solving. We solve problems. We've got big problems to solve now. That's why when I showed you earlier on in the World Economic Forum, talking about the fact that complex problem solving is one of the biggest skills we're going to need, because it is that creativity is creative problem solving. So, but there's another bit of this puzzle here. Creative thinking is problem solving, but not just problem solving normally. It has to be relevant and it has to be novel, new, and interesting. Now, here's the thing, right? If you solve a problem for an audience that don't believe it's a problem, you're wasting your time. If you're solving a problem for colleagues who don't believe there is a problem, you're wasting your time. So we sometimes think, okay, yeah, but they're highly creative problems. They solve a problem we don't yet know we had. Not true. Not true. So I'm talking about strategy of creativity. The reason that these companies come out with ideas that solve problems we didn't know we had was they researched people just like you heavily to work out what keeps you up at night, what stops you, what gets you up in the morning, what you're most scared of, what most worries you, what's the most dangerous thing you see on the horizon, what's the biggest opportunity you see on the horizon that you don't ever believe you'll reach. They do a lot of research to find out what the real problems are, and then they solve them. And then lo and behold, they go into action, become an innovation, and people go, wow, you've solved a problem you didn't even know existed. Well, I'm sorry, but we did know it existed because we heavily researched it beforehand to make sure. So you need to know, another trick you need to know if you want to be more creative and a breakthrough thinker, who are your audience? Who is the active seeker who is actively seeking what you are peddling? Don't do anything that they don't want. You're only going to know what they want if you know who they are and you know what's driving them from a psychological perspective, not just from a superficial conscious perspective. Also, it's got to be novel, new, interesting, different. I've already talked about the fact that nothing will disappoint people more greatly than meeting their expectations. What you do has to be novel, new, interesting, and different. Otherwise, it's boring. It's not going to be memorable. So creative thinking, problem solving with relevance, know your audience, and novel, you'll know your audience, know your market, and know how can I make this different? Something that they're going to remember. It's going to be meaningful to them, valuable to them, memorable in some way. So when we think about breakthrough thinking, see, we've got creative thinking and then breakthrough thinking is what we're talking about. Well, what's the difference? Well, breakthrough thinking is still problem solving. It's no different. It's problem solving. We solve problems. That's what we're here to do. That's what we do with creativity and innovation. Put every buzzword you want on it, but we're problem solving with relevance, novelty, and scale. If you have a breakthrough thought, it's different from a creative thought because a breakthrough thought has scale. And some people would say, fuck, that's an Uber, isn't it? That's an Amazon. That's an Airbnb. That's one of those kind of scale things. Don't think that when you're innovating, it has to be the next Uber, the next Amazon. Sometimes, by the way, the greatest innovation isn't what you add to something, it's what you subtract from it. It's not always what you add to something, it's what you subtract from it or entirely delete. You can have, say you work in HR, for example, you could look at your processes and you could work out, why did we set this process up? What's it designed to achieve? Is it still achieving it? And innovation can be, we set it up to do this. Does it do that? No. What's the answer? Kill it. That's innovation. Why keep doing what isn't working? Yeah. So scale is the impact and the value that it adds to a person's life. It can be the tiniest, weeniest little tweak, but it's not incremental improvement. Because if you're honest with yourselves, when you're doing incremental improvements for safety's sake, but to look like you're being innovative, you've got to be honest with yourself and go, is this truly adding massive value to our customer's life? I bet you if you were honest with yourself, you kind of think, well, not really. It's just kind of keeping us in the game. preserve the pension and all that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So you've got to be really careful. If you want to be a breakthrough thinker, know who you're talking to, make sure it's different to what they've heard before, or certainly unique and an original twist on it, and it's got to add value to their lives. Otherwise, I'm not interested, and I don't think many people are. This is pre-COVID. It's going to get even stronger. So massive success or spectacular failure within this arena lives and dies within the mindset. I've talked about this. If you want to be breakthrough thinkers as a business, if you want to create and embed a breakthrough thinking culture within your organization, if you want to make breakthrough thinking part of the DNA, not just an add-on to the day job, you've got to change minds. You've got to change the mindset. It starts here. It's not in the tools. You can go and buy a book that's going to teach you, I don't know, Disney strategies and et cetera, whatever you want to teach. It's not going to work, mate. You need to change the mindset. That's the strongest, most powerful tool that the creative thinker has. You can build that powerful tool yourself. I'll teach you how to in a minute. So let's talk about this. So we're going to start talking about how we can ourselves get a stronger mindset, become breakthrough thinkers. So there's some principles I'm going to teach you now. Principle number one, if an idea feels scary, that is good. If an idea feels safe, that is incredibly bad. So when someone comes to you with an idea and it gives you a sense of calmness and serenity, you need to question that perspective. Is this because it feels safe? If it feels safe, the chances are your brain, which is a pattern matching machine, is matching it to something that's already been done before and feels comfortable within that. Well, that's already been done. Yeah, that's cool. Let's go with that. I feel safe with that. Your job as an innovator, as a creative, as a breakthrough thinker, as a culture of creativity, you need to start chasing more scary shit. You need to be scared on a daily basis. I know that when I became a creative director and an executive creative director, et cetera, I got good when I got really comfortable being scared shitless. When I was a creative director who was not comfortable with that and wanted just to feel safe and secure, wasn't very effective. Wasn't effective for my teams, wasn't effective for my clients, wasn't effective for myself. But when I started going, oh man, give me something that really scares me. Give me something that's, I'm slightly terrified to present this idea to the client. Because when you have an idea like that, you're going to invest the rigor behind it to support the idea. If it scares you, and it should scare you, yeah, because it's what Lee Clow said. If it's not scary, it's not an idea at all. It's what Einstein said. If it's not out there, is it really got any true value? But when something scares you and you go, wow, it's bonkers, it's mad, but I kind of like it. Encourage you to put the rigor behind it, support it so you can sell it into clients. So know this, you want to start chase scary, don't chase good. Hope that makes sense. Chase the scary. Moving past post-COVID, we need more scary. Sometimes people think, this is water, by the way. Sometimes people think that, not coffee. Sometimes people think that to be creative is that the creative people in the room are the ones who just come up with ideas like that. And then we kind of put ourselves in a bucket and a barrel and say, we're not creative because we can't just flip ideas out 10 to the dozen that simply and easily. It's not the way it works. Even creative people think that. What creative people have forgotten, there's a levels of learning thing I won't go into today. There's levels of learning about being slightly, I'll go into it a bit, unconsciously incompetent. Well, I don't know what I don't know. Consciously incompetent, I know what I don't know. I can't remember. And then you want to be unconsciously competent, number 4, yeah? So you don't know how much you know. You just do it, it's automatic. So what creative people know is that they've worked out, they've learned the tools, which is what we can teach you, the tools, but they've got the mindset and the tenacity to keep practicing. So it becomes so automatic, so normal to them that it's like riding a bike. And if you ask a great creative, how do you do what you do? How do you come up with that idea? The chances are I think, oh, fuck knows, mate, I just thought of it. I don't know. I was just twiddling my thumbs and it just came to my mind. No, it wasn't. There's an unconscious process that's noodling away in the background that's going through all this system of stuff and churning out and pumping out the answer. So don't believe it needs to be easy. And by the way, the better you get at being a creative, the harder it gets. I'll tell you, that's another secret. Another thing you need to know, if you want to build a creative brain, if you want to be one of those people who has that mindset of creativity, if you want to be a manager who encourages that and supports that, you need to know that coming up with the great ideas means you have to come up with about 14,000 shit ones. You have to pump ideas out like a sausage factory. And I remember 20 odd years ago when I first started advertising, one of the junior creatives who got hired pretty much the same time as me and my partner got really upset that the creative director was treating them like a sausage factory, and they actually resigned, and as far as I'm aware, never worked in industry again. And they got really upset about the fact, oh, we're not a sausage factory. They're treating us like we're a sausage factory. I've got a really hard fact for you guys. If you want to be really creative, you are a sausage factory. I've asked this of hundreds of clients over the last decade, very amazing creative people. What is it the difference that makes a difference? Why are you so more prolific and extremely more creative than most people? And it's very simple. They say law of averages, mate. I'm less worried about making a load of fuck ups. I'll churn out mistakes and crap stuff till the cows come home, because I know if I want to win the lottery, I'm going to buy 1,400 tickets, not one. Maybe not 1,400, because you might as well just, you're obviously rich anyway. But you know, if you want to win a lottery, you got to buy a lot of tickets. Don't bet the house on one ticket. With a creative idea, don't bet the house on one idea. So when you're briefing teams, when you're encourage yourself to go wide and encourage yourself to think fast and come up with lots and lots and lots of sausages. Don't self-edit yourself, because you will end up doing yourself a disservice. You also need to know, if you're going to have a creative brain, if you're going to encourage the people around you to think more creatively, they need to be less precious. You don't need and want precious people. What we're going to find out post-COVID is the people who are overly precious and overly secretive and safe will not survive. They won't survive in this new world where we're moving into, where you're going to be more creative, where you're going to pump out sausages like crazy, where you've got to be comfortable experimenting and being uncomfortable, where you've got to be comfortable with learning from the things that don't go your way. Day in and day out, every single day. You can't be precious. If you're not precious, you can work really fast. And that's the thing, isn't it? Because some people say, I haven't got time to be creative. And I get this kickback a lot with a lot of organizations. Yeah, one of the biggest problems with us being creative and innovative, we don't have the time to do that. Bullshit. What you need to do, you need to learn how to think faster. Creativity is not a conscious mind process. So if you're going into creativity by thinking, I need to really creatively nut this thing out from a conscious brain, you ain't going to do it. You've got to free yourself up. You've got to be unconscious. Don't be precious. Know that you're going to make, was it Edison who said, I didn't fail to make the light bulb 99 times. I just worked out 99 times that it didn't work. Tenacity, yeah? Pull. Next. What else you got? Interested? What else you got? Interested? Put that all. Interested? What else you got? That's what you want to have, that mindset. It's a speed mindset. When you think fast like that, when you're not precious, you will come up with the great ideas. Guarantee. I've never in my 25-year career seen any other thing prove that incorrect. Also, creativity is really messy. That's why I was saying with the FD doesn't like it. It's very hard to put creativity on a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are really neat. They have nice little boxes. If you're really good at Excel, you can put nice little pastel colors, and you can even do those sticker lines and maybe some dotted lines. If you're really creative, you can put some, I don't know, you probably can't in Excel, but you can in Keynote and numbers and stuff. You can put in some, like, you make it look like a hand-drawn sketch. But whatever, I digress. You've got to be comfortable with being messy. You're going to get your hands dirty. You're going to not get everything right. That's the point. The mindset of the creative innovator, breakthrough thinker is, I'm going to mess up a lot of stuff very, very quickly. So I will, before you get to the good idea, I'll be way ahead of you, because I'm not precious. I'm not afraid of getting messy. I ain't afraid of making mistakes. And I tell you what, I'm going to keep coming back. I got coming back at you, coming back at you, coming back at you. I'm Muhammad Ali of the creative mindset, man. You want to be Muhammad Ali? I'm going to keep on coming. Not that I'm coming. That's the creative mindset. That's what you need to instill in your brains of your people. It's what you need to instill in your own minds and your own brains. There's a problem here, isn't there? Because I mentioned it up front, is that it's all good talking about how we need to be less precious, we need to be faster at thinking, we need to be comfortable making mistakes, we need to be extremely comfortable being uncomfortable, we need to embrace uncertainty, we need to not just walk through fear doors, we need to seek them out and destroy fear doors. There's a problem. You're culturally conditioned to do the opposite. You're culturally conditioned to not be your true natural born self. Another one of those bombshells I put out there. Go, oh fucking hell, what's he talking about now? Well, here's why. Here's evidence. Science. I like science, so we're going to talk about this. There are two types of creative thinking: divergent thinking, which is when you create lots of choices and options, as you can see from the little slide there. So we have a problem and we generate lots of sausages without being precious, and we get messy and we make mistakes, but we generate tons and tons and tons of possible solutions. Only when we have lots and lots and lots and lots of sausages to pick from do we start making choices and go convergent to converge to the right solution. Here is the problem. You're probably way ahead of me. Business is designed to converge as fast as humanly possible because we don't like failure, because we don't like uncertainty, not just as a business, but as the brains within the business. So we're trained to get to the right solution fast as possible, because that surely means it's the best solution. If it's the fastest one, it's the best one. I'm not going to skip back to the slide with Kodak and Polaroid and Toys R Us and Pan Am and Nokia and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and all of the giants that are going to fall after this pandemic releases its grip on the world. The people who will drop are the ones who chased the fastest solution, believing wrongly it was the right solution. So divergent thinking is how we can measure creativity. NASA measure creativity of their most innovative mathematicians and engineers. They do a thing called, it's not a very creative title, the divergent thinking puzzle. It's very uncreative. But anyway, and it's really simple test. Here's a paper clip. In the next 10 minutes, I want you to give me 150 uses for it. And they do that. And then a convergent thinker will think within the box, within the constraints of reality. So look at it. It's about an inch long. It's made out of metal. And they go, well, you can unstravel it and you can poke people's eyes out with it. You could put a piece of cotton wool on the end of it and you can clean your ears out with it. I don't know. You could put it around a ponytail. You could knot it and that kind of holds your ponytail up. You could use it. You could put a flight on it and use it as a dartboard if you're stuck in quarantine and you haven't got a dartboard. You can make one out of paper clips, I guess, and a disc of blue tack. That's kind of convergent thinking. It's not very creative, but the creative thinker, the divergent thinker, the ones that NASA want are the people who do not take the physical, scientific, biological constraints into order. They don't say this paperclip is an inch long. They go, but what if this paperclip was made out of atoms? And what if this paperclip was only 1 atom thick? Then it could deliver the corona vaccine through the air, because it's smaller than the holes in the skin. What if this paperclip was made out of was like a 14,000 feet long? It could be a spaceship that took us to Mars, so that if the world does implode, we can get to Mars on a paperclip. They do not take constraints. That's where divergent thinkers, children think like this. Yeah. If you say, what can you do with this? I think of a million mad ideas. You want madness. One of my old creative directors used to always say after he would brief us was, he'd say this, and I'm going to swear again, I'm sorry, but he would say this: I encourage you to go fucking mental. Don't come back with anything that's on budget or possible to do tomorrow. Otherwise, you're fired. Brilliant. In that phrase, he basically said everything. Don't be precious, pump them out like sausages, be brave, get messy, get dirty, and think wide. Don't come back with one possible solution. I want 1,400 amazing opportunities. Most of them will be rubbish. I won't judge you against that. So the divergent thinking test. So a couple of scientists, researchers, Lang and Hardman, back in the day, they wanted to work out, well, let's test this thing. And what they found out, there was a quote. And this quote was by a guy called Buckminster Fuller, reading it on my other screen. And he said, everyone is born a genius. but the process of living degeniuses them. This is not good, right? Everyone is born a genius, but the process of living degeniuses them. And he measured genius on how creative are you? How much of an Einstein are you? How much are you really going to change the world? I think we need more Einsteins right now. Don't I mean? Maybe not to that degree, we'd like a couple, obviously, but we all need more geniuses to fix the things that we're going through right now within our businesses, within our cultures, within our politics, etc., within our economies, etc., etc. So Lang and Hardman, they went, this is a really worrying statistic, let's test it. So they did a study, and it was a very long study that obviously cost them lots and lots of money, lots of finance behind it. And they followed a massive, massive pool of people. Can't remember the exact study. Go and find it on Google. Lang and Hardman, genius study. And they followed these group of children from the age of 3 to the age of graduating from high school. And they did the NASA test, the divergent thinking test. You can see it here, from the age of 3 to 5, 98% of them were considered highly creative from 3 to 5. They went back and tested them again, same test, when they were 8 to 10. Only 30% now are considered highly creative. They went back and tested them when they were 13 to 15. Only 12% are creative. By the time they reached adulthood, only 2% were barely creative. I don't know about you, but that one, it proves Buckminster's quote to be pretty depressingly true. But it also proves a point, and I don't know if you can see what's happening here, but I would say it's a little thing called education, a little thing called cultural conditioning. I did this training to a very big group, and they were the head teachers of the Kensington and Chelsea schools. So people pay a lot of money for their children to go to these schools to get the finest education in the land. And I remember showing this slide, and one of them cried more than the others. One of the guys, the teachers, the head teacher, burst into tears when he saw this. And obviously some of his colleagues were a bit concerned. They were worried as well, but luckily I'm a psychotherapist. I worked with deep trauma as well for 4 years, but so I was okay. And I said, what's wrong? And he goes, what the fuck, we're fucking up our children. And I guess, well, is it incorrect? Do you not agree with it? He goes, no, totally not agree with it. It's horrific. Yeah, I agree with it. It's worrying. My God, the fuck are we doing? And then I said, well, I've got a question for you. What happened to the 2% then? I mean, if we can agree there's a massive drop off within education, well, what happened to the 2%? And he cleared his eyes, he had a bit of a cough, and he side checked his colleagues, thinking, this is going to go down bad. And he said, to be honest, Matt, they slipped through the net. And all of his colleagues went, yep. This is what's happening to us. We are all natural born creatives. So any excuse that we have going, but I'm not gifted with those talents, can throw them beliefs in the gutter. I became creative because I was lucky when I was young, within 3 to 5. Someone saw a picture I drew in primary school and patted me on the back and said, that's amazing. You're an artist, Matt. And suddenly, anyone who knows about beliefs, that belief got cemented within my fragile, hypnotizable sponge of a brain, as I am a creative. So I invested the time, energy, and effort with tenacity to train myself to be excellent at creativity. I trained myself to be uncomfortable with being comfortable unconsciously. This is what all these creative people do, by the way. We have a belief that's embedded at a very early age that we are creative. Therefore, we invest the time, energy, and muscle into making that so. And our brains shape themselves to be creative. I'll tell you about that in a second. I'll tell you about it now, actually, because the next slide up. Your brain optimizes to what you do the most. It's called neuroplasticity. So what you do the most of, your brain will optimize to that. So this is why people will say, I'm incredibly stressed out, depressed, and anxious. I've always been incredibly stressed, anxious, and depressed. It's who I am. It's what I am. I was born that way. It's just my way. Set in stone. Bullshit. It's not set in stone. You've optimized. You become really good at doing it because you practice that. Your brain is like a muscle. It's like a muscle, by the way. It's not a muscle. It's like a muscle. So the more you exercise certain regions of the brain, the stronger those regions get. Won't go into too deeply, but trust me, neuroplasticity. So the 2% exercise the creativity muscle. Somewhere along the line, they slipped through the net and someone went, that's a really nice poem. You're a great writer. That's a really nice drawing. You're an artist, or whatever. Yeah, it's a really nice embroidery stitch thing you've done there. You should become a textilist or a furniture maker, etc., etc. And then the others became mathematicians and etc., etc., or the army or whatever. It's about beliefs in your neuroplasticity. You can rebuild, by the way, through neuroplasticity that which you lost. So there, but you need to know, what do I need to rebuild and what do I need to know in order to build a muscle that's a creative muscle. So here's the thing, what do the 2% do different to the rest of us, or the rest of some other people, not me, because I'm creative, I would argue. So what do the 2% do different? So I've just got some Instagram LinkedIn things going through. I'm just not telling me I'm a dick. So what do the 2% do different? They do 4 things differently to the rest of us. They enrich, expand, explode, entrench. This essentially means they enrich their map of the world. So if you want to build a creative brain, if you want to encourage your teams to have more creative brains, you need to know that creativity comes from colliding different old ideas in new and interesting ways. So the only way you're going to create and collide new and interesting old things to make things new is if you've got an incredibly good closet in there, like MacGyver from the day, who had bubble gum and everything in there. You want to be like a creative hoarder. You know those hoarder programs, people who are like hoard everything. Just checking, are you still there? Emily?
We've lost your camera, Matt, but we can see you, hear you.
Okay, perfect. Do you need my camera? Probably not.
No, carry on.
Perfect. So enrich expense, you need to enrich your map of the world. You need to go out there and find new and interesting experiences. You need to go and listen to blogs, listen to podcasts that you wouldn't normally listen to, read blogs you wouldn't normally listen to, go to galleries you wouldn't normally visit, read genres of books and magazines that you wouldn't normally read and watch, etc., etc. You really need to start building up and enriching your mind with all of this information, knowing that at some point it will be used for something one day. Another thing the 2% do, they never stopped imagining and daydreaming. There's a science thing which I don't talk about now. They get into theta states. It's an imagination state. They become more unconscious, more subconscious. They're able to expand their awareness so they can drop into subconsciousness, which is where all the magic happens anyway. Won't get into that now. They explode. They know how to blow a problem into a million different pieces in order to find the interesting parts in there. So it's one thing we talk about in Breakthrough Thinkers is how do you take a problem and blow it into all its component parts to find the better opportunity within the problem you once perceived was the real problem. Because oftentimes the problem is not the problem. And if the problem is not the problem, what then is the problem? That's what creative people ask themselves. How can I blow this thing to a million parts, find something more interesting to tackle? They entrench, which means they practice, 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 practice. I play the guitar. I'm pretty okay, I guess. But I wouldn't be okay if I didn't practice, and I wouldn't have practiced like a child until my fingers bled. That's why people say, oh, you're really, really creative on the guitar. You're a musician. I am. I would go, yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I can do that. I can improvise, etc., etc. But it's only because I learned the scales and I burnt them into the muscle so that my brain optimized to be able to be creative within that field and arena. So they enrich their map of the world. If you want to be happier, go and chase experiences, not things. If you want to be more creative, you need to be a daydreamer. John Lennon, I'm sure, has said it a lot in his lyrics about the ability to daydream. Salvador Dali has spoken long and hard about daydreaming and hypnosis and dropping into trance, etc. You need to know how to explode problems. It's what Einstein did. I'll show you in a second. And you need to keep practicing the tools that you learn. All of this gives creative people confidence. When you have creative confidence, that's when you can start tackling the meaty problems. That's when you start doing the brilliant stuff. So you need to have creative confidence. You need to know that creative gold is not stumbled upon, you mine for it. You need to dig deep in order to find the real gold, to find the real gems. And one thing just on closing, Einstein said this, and this is a thing about staying divergent and not converging to solutions too fast. Einstein said, if I had 60 minutes to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes defining it and 5 minutes solving it. Too many times in business, we spend 55 minutes having a cup of tea after we've solved it. You need to stay away from solutions. If you want to be an innovative company, an innovative culture, you need to know how can I really dig into and find the proper problems. Because Einstein said that the first problem to solve is discovering the first and true problem you need to solve. There are ways of doing this, there's ways we can teach you to do this, but that's what you need to do. So wrapping up from this little talk here, from a mindset perspective, you need to be comfortable being uncomfortable. If you're going to be bolder and braver, you'll be bolder and braver if you have more information in your brain and resources to draw from in order to create new, interesting, different solutions. You need to stop self-editing yourself and don't expect your teams to come back, and don't ask them to come back with one perfect answer. Ask them to come back much sooner than that deadline with lots of possible solutions that we can work through. From that, you're going to start creating great creative work. I'm going to have to leave it there, but I just want to hand it over to Emily now to say, has anybody got any questions that I can answer anything I've spoken about thus far? And thank you for listening.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much. Yeah, we've got a couple of questions here, if you don't mind, that we can just nip through quickly.
Yeah.
So first of all, we've got an inquiry about any tips on helping employees adjust to a more autonomous, more outcome-based remote working model?
Yeah, so basically, if people are going to adjust to that more autonomous kind of thing, if you want people to be more autonomous, if you want them to think for themselves, if you want them to not feel like they're being watched and feel like you have to watch them, what is really important, you have to make the tasks that you're giving them much more meaningful to them. You need to work out, how can I intrinsically motivate my staff, my people? What is it that I can give them? How can I frame challenges and problems in a way that I know will be meaningful to them? So if you give someone a brief who's working from home, that basically means they're not going to be able to finish at a decent time at night to take the kids to bed or homeschool and whatever, you're going to lose them off the bat straight away. So whether they're working at home or whether they're working within an office, as a leader, as a manager, as someone who's encouraging people to do what is arguably the best work of their lives, and I think as a leader you should always be thinking that at whatever level, then you want to be going, how can I make this more meaningful, more valuable to these people, to my people?
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. Next question. What advice would you give on how to apply creativity on a daily basis?
To apply creativity on a daily basis, really good question. You got to expect it. You got to, and when people do it, you got to respect it. So if you want to get people to apply it on a daily basis, it says, it was kind of saying at the top, you've got to start measuring what it means to be creative. So people will improve what they measure. So if your KPIs don't measure creativity, if your KPIs don't measure people on their ability not to get things right first time, if your KPIs measure people on being able to get to the right solution, potentially the right solution, the fastest, you're not going to encourage them to be creative. Also, as a manager and as a leader, it's this old age thing, and it's so true, is you've got to model the way. If you want others to be creative, you have to be creative yourself. There's a thing they say that people don't practice what you preach, they practice what you tolerate. So you've got to start at the top. If you want other people to be creative, if you want them to go out on a limb, if you want them to be brave and bold, etc., you've got to lead the way. You've got to show them it's safe to do so. That's how you create a safe space for dangerous ideas, is to show them that, look, I'm out there and I ain't got shot. Come with me. It's lovely out here.
Right, okay. And what do you think are the key leadership behaviours that are most important at this time?
Hope. I think beyond anything, I think people have worried about hope. I mean, in regard to creativity, if we trip the fight and flight response in people's brains, we know from science that they're parts of their brain responsible for big idea thinking and thinking outside the box, etc., get shut down, and they only focus on either the threat or the reward, often a minimal reward. So what you need to do is completely expand their brains. So visionary leadership has never been more important, but hopeful leadership has never been more important. You've got to lead the way. You've got to make people realize and help people to realize that the future will be better than the present, and it was in our power to make it so. If they don't believe that, good luck. But you've got to inspire hope, which means you have to find the hope within yourself, whether that's from coaching or whatever it is. But you've got to find that within yourself, because you've got to be congruent with your emotional states, because people will pick up on a bullshitter a million miles away. So I would say it's the most important trait right now. The most important skill you got to inspire hope. Period.
Okay, just one more then, because we've run over a little bit now. So final one then. How can organisations learn fast? What processes can they use to harness the learning that has come out of this unprecedented time?
What processes can they harness? I think the biggest thing you can do within this time is to don't drift back to legacy behaviors and legacy thinking. I think this is the time to really do a proper audit on yourself and within your business, and how that affects your customers and clients and colleagues, to go, okay, what processes do we currently have within this business that enable us to do what we do? Then we need to ask ourselves the second question, well, is it still achieving the goal we originally aimed for that thing to achieve? Yes or no? If it's a no, it's like, well, how can we do that better? So I think the first thing that you need to do is you need to start identifying where the true problems are. You've got to find out what's the true problem. And if there's nothing else, I can tell you what there is a problem, is the fact that we can't go back to the way we were, and we shouldn't go back to the way we were. If you want to embed it, then it's consistency. It's what the rep plan with the blog post that we're doing. Then if you want, you have to be consistency over intensity. It's another support psychology thing. If you just go intense on something, but it's short-lived, people won't build a habit. They won't build a belief around it. They won't build hope around it. But if you're consistent but smaller, then people start following that. So consistency over intensity on everything you do. But the first thing you need to do is audit the business. What's not working?
Great, thank you. Great, I think we'll have to leave it there then, if that's okay. I know we did get a few more questions that we haven't got round to, so we'll do our very best to get back to you, those people that we didn't manage to get through all the questions. But thank you so much to everyone for attending. Thank you, Matt. That was brilliant. Thank you ever so much.
Thank you. Thank you for everyone. Thank you. Pleasure.
As we mentioned earlier, the slides and a recording of the video will be coming your way very shortly, and there will be some contact details at the back of those slides. So if you've got any particular questions or you need any more information, then please do get in touch with us. So thank you ever so much. Thank you again, and we hope to see you all at another event very soon.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, Emily. Cheers. Bye.